Yeah. Okay, Amy. So how are we?
Good. How you
Nice.
doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so happy to
I'm
have you
very
here.
excited.
Very excited too.
Yeah, talk about myself.
Can't wait to talk about you. We have lots of questions
Yeah.
for you.
Oh, good. Okay.
So I'm Amy Harrington, and
That's Amy Harrington.
I'm conducting an interview with Danny DeVito
It's Danny DeVito over
for
here.
the Archive of American Television.
Nice.
We're going to talk mostly about your TV career because there's
Right.
a lot of ground to
There was
cover.
a lot of stuff we did in TV.
And it's July 27th, 2011.
Is it July 27th?
Can you believe it already?
Wow,
It's a fast year, huh?
2011.
And we're in Beverly
Fantastic.
Hills, California.
That's
And
right.
here we go. You ready?
Okay, I'm set. Fill it up.
So we're going to start with a brief kind of introduction, some background material.
Okay.
But before we begin, obviously you have a new look today. And
Oh,
we were
yeah.
wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's I've always heard that blondes have more fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I just had it done this morning, so I'm very excited about it. I'm doing a part in a movie called Hotel Noir. That's an internet movie. I did one 2 years ago called A Girl Walks Into a Bar for a couple friends of mine. One was the one friend is Carla Cucino, who was in Karen Cisco, that I produced, and her husband Sebastian is a filmmaker, and we did a film 2 years ago that was just for YouTube. It's like kind of an experiment because people are trying at this time to figure out ways to monetize the internet, and so far nobody's been able to really do it. And so one of the things that we're trying is to make movies for very, very, very little money and partner up with YouTube. And it's kind of like television in a way, but only on the internet.
In
where
what way?
Where you would go to a sponsor, and you'd say, like the last movie we did was sponsored by Lexus, the car company, and so they put the movie up, and it's free to the audience. So you go on. So it's like, and they spend money every 18 minutes or so. There's a little bumper that says something about the Lexus. So it's kind of cool. And the one of the attractions is the way the business is today is, especially the movie business, but any business in the TV business as well. But the movie business is more so. You have so much money that you spend on making the movies, even if it's like $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4. It's a lot of money. It's like, and then you have to support that movie with another $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4 or more to advertise it. And so there are so many costs. Now, the internet movie, you take the movie and you just make the movie, and then you just put it on, and and the promotion is happening on the internet, and that's free. So there's no charges for prints and advertising and stuff like that. You just have to that's one. So it's just like kind of a cool thing to try. And I'm doing 2 in a row. I'm going to do this one called Hotel Noir, that Sebastian's directing. And then I have one that's called St. Sebastian's, which is about a hospital. And I'm going to do that in November. But let's get back to the hair for a second. For my last 6 seasons on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, my hair has gotten wilder and wilder and wilder. It's just got crazy, and I just let it grow. And last year I didn't cut it at all. I just didn't. So it was like literally down to my shoulders, and I would pump it up and push it up. And, Frank Reynolds, my character on Sunny, is very, very wild and is having a great time, just a wonderful time, and getting into reliving his his childhood, his youth, anything that these guys do, he goes along with and supports. He's got a lot of money, so he's done everything basically. He's done real estate, he's done insurance, he's done car salesman, he's done this, that, and the other. He's sold, resold, imported, exported. Business-wise, he's savvy. And now what he wants to do is go back and have some fun. And so last week we did Comic-Con, which was a very, very big thing with our show with Sonny. We have a lot of great fans out there. And I decided, I think, for the next wave of, I don't know when this is going to be ready to be seen, but,
In the fall.
in the fall,
Yeah.
The next season of Sonny, I may be, Frank is taking a different turn.
You might keep the blonde bombshell
Maybe.
thing going.
Yeah, let the hair grow out, get a little bit longer, and go. Because they say that blondes have more fun.
Oh.
I don't know, and I'm going to find
We're
out.
about to find
And
out.
in this room, there are like 6 women, I think. So, I might find out today.
We got time.
Nothing but
Absolutely.
time. We're in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
We're in a hotel. Forget
Night is
about it.
young. Well, we're going to get to Philadelphia. And
Yeah,
all
let's
that
do that.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
So,
all that stuff.
But first, we
We'll
literally
get
are going
everything.
to
Let's
start
do everything.
with what was
This
your
is
name?
green tea, by the way.
What was your name at birth?
As
It's going to
Jackie
be-
Gleason used to say, how sweet it is. What?
What was your name at birth?
My name at birth? What the hell is that? My mother wanted to have my mom was older when she had me, and I'm the 5th kid. In those days, this is in 1944 when I was born,
What's your actual birth date?
November 17th, 1944. And in those days, when you went to the doctors, the old man, Dr. Knapp, he was like, let's see. So they said to her, they had no machines, they had nothing, whatever. They said to her, Mrs. DeVito, you either have a tumor or you're pregnant. That's what she said, the guy said. So she comes home. My mother, by the way, was on Taxi, if you get a chance to see that. You'll see her in Louie's mother. She plays the part.
We have that coming
Yeah.
up.
Anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is back to 1944. She wanted to go bowling and everything. She was like, she was like a real. So she goes back another couple days later. She tells everybody. She comes home. They say, hey, the doctor says I either have a tumor or I'm pregnant. Oh, my goodness. So a couple days later, she goes back, I guess, whenever, to the doctor, and he says, you're pregnant. And she goes, oh, no. Oh, my God. I'm pregnant? She'd rather have a tumor. She used to tell the story, and she said, well, you get the tumor cut out. That's it. Because her motto was always, kids, right? You're better off raising pigs. You can eat them. I changed that on the show. I used it on Taxi. I said, my mother said, you're better off raising tomatoes. You can eat them. Because I thought pigs was a little bit harsh. But she was a loving mom, and she loved us like to, the nth degree, and totally dedicated to us. And, a total hypocrite when it came to, kids. But she loved them. You know what I mean? She really was. It was like, that kind of feeling.
What was her name?
Julia. Her name was Julia Muchello. And my father called her Muchello. Julia Muchello. And the other thing, just to skip around a little bit, is my mother was a total die-hard Yankee fan. And my father was a go-to-the-bank Brooklyn Dodger fan. He was like totally the opposite. He loved the Dodgers. Took me to Ebbets Field. Would never go near Yankee Stadium. We lived in New Jersey. I was born in Asbury Park, New Jersey, about 13 blocks from the beach. It's a really beautiful town. It was a summer resort, and the way Asbury got famous was that it was halfway between Atlantic City and New York City. So in those days, in the early days of roads, when they were all dirt roads and everything, you couldn't get from Atlantic City to New York City without having 2 or 3 flat tires. So you need some place to stop off. And this guy, Bradley, whoever it was that planned this city of Asbury Park, he was smart. He had he knew the lay of the land. It was beautiful. It had lakes and inlets and some saltwater inlets and some freshwater lakes, and he put it right in there, and it became like a little jewel on the eastern seaboard. And my father's family moved there. He was from Brooklyn. My mother was born in Asbury. Her father was from Italy. He was a tailor, and he worked in one of the big. He had a shop until he worked in a department store there. But that, as a tailor, fine clothing, and all the the mobsters would come down and get their clothes made by Ludovico. That's what his name was. Anyway, that town that I grew up in was like I say, it was tourist. People came from Newark, from New York, from East Orange, South Orange, whatever, down to the Asbury shore, down the shore they called it. And in the summer it was a playground. It was packed. I mean, it was wall to wall. You couldn't move. It was like, and girls from the city just filled it with, it was a glorious place to be alive when I was a teenager, and the boardwalk was filled with people all the time, and the beaches were like packed, and we used to swim at one beach. We had the First Avenue beach. We swam. All the guys and the girls would hang out down there, and then in the winter, right, it was empty. So it was like a Bergman film. I mean, just rows and rows of parking meters and nothing, like just a simple like boardwalk, empty, seagulls kind of thing. Nobody at all. A couple of locals, they'd repair a sidewalk, they'd do something. Sometimes they'd take a section of the boardwalk and they'd do a little repairs on it. But the place was like I rode my bike. It was a mile square. One of the beautiful things about it was it had movie theaters because of the summertime. It had the Paramount, which was right on the boardwalk. It had the Lyric, which literally showed foreign films. This is back in that day, subtitled movies. They had the Mayfair, which was a Moroccan palace. It was built in the 30s. All that kind of ornate, intricate stuff. Big, plush red seats. You lean back and look up, and the actual stars would move, and the clouds they had some kind of thing up there that.
So did you go to the movies a lot?
All the time. Like every Wednesday, the movies changed in the main theaters. So Saturday and Sunday, I was in there for sure. And then if you missed a movie, it would go to the Paramount down on the boardwalk for the second run of the second week or whatever, third week or whatever. And then you had the Lyric, and you had the St. James. The St. James was built around the time of maybe a little later than the Mayfair. I remember them showing the bridge on the River Kwai, and Cookman Avenue was like right in front of it. And as a promotion, which movie companies have been known to do, promote their movies, they actually built a little bridge. It was a big bridge over the street. So you drove your car under this bridge, the bridge on the River Kwai. They built it out of it was bamboo and all kinds of really spectacular. And once in a while they had stars would come down to, my sisters were into John Derek at the time. I didn't know John Derek from a hole in the ground, but they dragged me down there with throngs of screaming females to get a signed picture from John Derek.
What about television? Did you watch
I was
TV
way into television, way into television. My father had a candy store. That was his business. He sold hot dogs, hamburgers, penny candy little things in the store, but he was very, very into like a TV when it first started, and we were on our block. We were one of the first people to have a 9-inch Dumont television.
What'd you like to watch?
I watched anything that we could get, anything that was on. I mean, like in the early days, it was basically Uncle Milty and Milton Berle, and then I can't remember exactly the chronology of it, but it grew exponentially because we the next time we got a television, it was a little bigger, and then we got then my mother wanted the console, the whole thing, and that we got that. But they were really into television. That was a happy thing for me. I watched, the $1 Million Movie, which was a thing on Channel 9 that played the same movie over and over and over and over again every week. No, every night for a week. See, if King Kong was on, you'd watch it all week at night. So you could, pick it up anytime you wanted. But they had lots of great old movies. Channel 5 was... they had a lot of, I think it was Laurel and Hardy and mainly those movies. And I think that was the station. It was either that station or WPIX. I can't remember which one were the ones that the King brothers owned. The father owned. King was the king, and now Michael King and all these guys who have King World, who do all the game shows and everything. They're from Asbury. Those people are right from there. Their father was way ahead of the curve, and when he was actually broadcasting, back in those days.
I don't want to forget, what was your father's name?
Daniel. My father's. It's hard to say what his actual name was, but they named me Daniel after him. His birth certificate is like you can't even read it, but I think it was a Daniel.
And we never actually got the full answer. But so were you born Daniel DeVito?
Yeah, Daniel DeVito. And then when I was confirmed, because I was a Catholic at the time, not anymore, I was confirmed Daniel. I was Michael. So my name is Daniel Michael DeVito. And we went to parochial school because basically back in the day, and it's just a common thing. This is like something that happens in a lot of places, like the way the Bangs Avenue High School's grammar school is where my sisters went to school. I have the two sisters that were still around. Two of the kids that they had died way before I was born.
Sorry to hear that.
My mom and dad. Yeah, stories that are like, heartbreaking stories. But I wasn't around for that. But my sisters went to Bangs Avenue High School, and they grammar school, and what was happening was there were a lot of people coming into the town, African Americans coming into the town, and in those days there was a great deal of prejudice against. Obviously, we're talking about in the 40s, 50s. And the Catholic school capitalized on this by putting up a Catholic school, not maybe 3-4 blocks away. And so all the Italians and all the Irish and all the white people, so to speak, I mean, I'm pretty dark, but the people who weren't African Americans coming up from the South, they would send their kids to the parochial school. And this is kind of my take on it. I don't know if this is true, but this is the way I wound up seeing it. And there were a few people of color in the school, but it was just, I'm not sure exactly how that worked. I went to school. There was one black kid in my class. for the whole 8 years of grade school. There was an Asian girl, you know. Anyway, without any comment, go ahead, ask me some. Yeah.
So where then did you go to high school? Where did you
Well, what I
move
did
on
was
to?
I started at Asbury High School. I went there for 2 or 3 months. My father had a good friend who was in business with him, whose son was going to a boarding school called Oratory Prep. And there was a lot of stuff going on in town. It was like there's a lot of drugs and a lot of things happening, and they wanted to get us out of town for most of it. So they sent us to boarding school. And it was okay. I mean, I didn't mind getting out because it wasn't as good a school as Asbury, the public school. The school I went to, the boarding school, wasn't as good a school. But it was away. And it was kind of romantic, and it was kind of out of, and you got out of the fray. Except for the weekends when I'd come home and get back into the fray. So it was all right. I guess it was, one of those things that they wanted to do for their kid that they could do.
Were you interested in theater and
No,
acting at that time?
not at all.
So then how did
What happened in high school was a teacher asked me to be in the senior play. I was a junior. And I said I'd never done anything like that before, and I had no interest in it. But he said it would help my grade if I did what he said. And I wasn't doing very well in school. And it was a play called The $1 Million Saint. And it was about St. Francis of Assisi coming to a Catholic school that needed money. They always work that kind of like thing in there for the parents, to like so some theme of how we're going to pay for the boiler stuff. Anyway, I fit the part. I was like small and dark, and everybody else was like tall and white. And I got a robe. I didn't have a lot of lines, I remember. I had this robe, this thing with a rope tie. I had a lot of fun doing it, watching everybody rehearse their parts. I had a few lines. But the opening of the play was a tableau. It was like just the most, everybody standing there looking off. St. Francis of Assisi, the other actors in the play. My mother and father came from Asbury. I don't think my father came. My mother drove up from Asbury to Summit, New Jersey, to see the play. And the place was packed with people. I'd never been on stage before. And the curtain didn't quite make it to the apron of the stage. There was like a hole about that big. And the opening of the thing was the curtains open and there's this tableau. And we're all there. And I am in a robe with no shoes and socks on, playing St. Francis of Assisi. And the audience settled. The lights came up on stage. And just before the curtain opened, I heard my mother say, "Those are his feet." And the curtain opened, and we were all like busting because, and all the people who came with her in one little circle of people from Asbury were laughing because she had a great way of doing stuff like that, like just, out of the blue saying something. And I think that, like, a lot of that influenced me in my life, in my career, in my comedy, what I do. It's kind of like surprising. It's like, well, that's what it is. Comedy, it's timing. It's taking something and flipping it into something that is kind of absurd or weird. And if she just laid that line out as clear as a bell, those are his feet. and there wasn't a sound in the play because they were all it's just a perfect timing, and the curtain opened on cue, and we were all like left there and basically naked with that line hanging in the air with people snickering all over the stage and in the audience. And so it was kind of cool. It's a story that I love telling because it brings back so many memories of her. She had no teeth she was, like I said, they were older she was in her 40s when she got pregnant with me. And so by the time all this is going on, everybody thought my mother was my grandmother because she was like, gray, and she dyed her hair after a while. We all went gray early, that kind of thing, family. But she was a character. She would do things like rake the leaves in a house coat out in Asbury, she was my size, very feisty. Say anything. Oh, I forgot. The car would pull up with people in it. I forgot I invited them. Oh, right away, she'd tell my sisters, put the coffee on, get the cake out, do the blah. She's running around. People are getting out of the car with presents now because they came from out of town. She invited them for dinner. They came a little early. First thing that happens, we're in the living room. She can't find her teeth. Where are my teeth? My teeth. I'm all slob. I can't get my... They're going to come in a minute. Everybody. So all of us, me and my sisters and everybody's running around looking for her teeth. And somebody thought to go out in the gutter and look in the pile of leaves where she was she dropped them into the leaves. They were sitting there in a pile of leaves. And they ran them in just as the people were coming up on the front porch. Hi! Everybody's like, come on in, Oz. Good to see you. Excuse my hair. And take her house coat off. And she's a character, man.
There's that timing again.
But always had food in the house. Always had everything, If she was making the sausage and peppers and the meatballs and the incredible food. Just everything, the broccoli rabe. She always picked it. She had a garden in the back. Wasn't really kept, but it was all wild stuff growing, like dandelions and, all kinds of herbs, mint, and she just go out and grab handfuls of it and cook with it. And it was all that kind of like, that upbringing was like very, between the Yankees and the Dodgers and the teeth and the this and the Uncle Joe coming with a case of beer and this one and that one. It was like a potpourri of like real Italian Americans who they were Americans, but they were, they had a lot of the leftover, stuff from Naples and from Calabria and from Basilicata and wherever they were, their heritage. And they would always sing, and they would always play music, and they would always play opera, and they would always play, and it was always, whether it was Sunday or not, it didn't have to be a Sunday. There was always Sunday dinner where folks would come to Sunday dinner, but it didn't have to be. It could be any day of the week. The people, my uncle, one of my uncles was a baker, and he was the greatest. He made the greatest Italian bread you've ever tasted in your life. He had these big brick ovens in his shop, right? And every day he baked for like all of the restaurants in the area. And he would come home with his truck, his big bread truck, Joe Falco's bread truck. And he would come home and he'd come to my house because he also made wine. So he'd bring a gallon of wine and some fresh, right out of the brick oven bread, right? And my father would make a giant dandelion or chicory salad or whatever. My mother would have the meat on the thing and maybe some pasta, whatever they were eating. And they would eat and drink for like hours. You You'd go out. I'd go out as on my bike, riding around, go see my friends. They go, you got to be home before dark. They didn't know when it got dark. It was dark. I come home anytime. They're still there, right? Joe Falco's got to get up early in the morning because he's got to go. So he leaves. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Gets in his truck. I don't know how he found the door of the truck, let alone got in the truck. He didn't live, but he only lived a few blocks away. Could have walked. Gets in the truck. He goes. We got some television on, there's some baseball on, there's something what's going on, this, that, and the other thing. All of a sudden the phone rings. It's Jesse, his wife. Where's Joe? He didn't make it home. Holy shit balls, what are we going to do? Joe didn't make it home. So we pile in the car. Now we'll all go like hillbillies going off looking for Uncle Joe. Where did he go? What route did he take? How did he go? Will he get an accident? He's in the hospital. Is he what? We pull up by Lakeside, right? We pull up. His truck is there. See the truck? We go over to the truck. His feet are on the dashboard. His head is back. He's snoring like rumbling the truck so loud. He couldn't make it. He couldn't get home, that's all. He pulled over to the side of the road, went to sleep. They're going to call anybody. That's the kind of life that's the upbringing. That picture of Monday night from the time I was like a little kid. Bingo. My mother would go to bingo. And they would fight about the same $5. It was $5 that she wanted. And the two of them would argue over the bingo night. The same $5 every week. She'd always get it. You know what I mean? And she'd always go to bingo. Never missed. And bingo is like a really addictive thing because, like they went on a Monday night. And that was the Sons of Italy at the hall. Bingo. Then on Friday night was the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So they had to go then. Because you can't support the Sons of Italy and not the Immaculate Heart of Mary with the bingo. So you got to go. So now he's going, what? Now it's $10 a week, And you don't win. Once in a while, they would win.
Speaking of your family, it seems like one of the key members of your family in terms of how your career path into entertainment started is your sister. In terms of the original job she gave you.
My sister Angie. Well, the thing is that, she was a direct conduit to where it is now. Because
Can you talk about
what
that?
happened was I graduated high school. I was home. I was going to get a job. I wasn't going to go to college. I didn't have the grades anyway. And why not? I get a job and I'll live in Asbury and it'll be cool. And my sister says to me, she had a beauty parlor. That was Angela's Beauty Parlor. She had a, pretty nice little establishment. Like her and two girlfriends, and they had sinks and whatever. And she had a nice business. She said, Danny, why don't you come? She was doing all right. She said, why don't you come to work for me? I said, Angie, what am I going to do there? I'm like, wait a minute. Last job I had was cutting grass. I was gardening. Pushing the mower. I can do that. Push a lawnmower. Trim the hedges. The first job I had was putting little rides on the kids on the little kiddie rides. Ring the bell, blow the horn. I was 14 years old. So I didn't know what to say. So I said, well, what would I do? She said, well, you have to go to school. You have to go to beauty school. Man, this did not sit well with me. She said, but you'll have a job. Then a lot of people don't have jobs. You come out, I'll give you a job. I'll pay for your way to beauty school and blah, blah, blah. So I started thinking about it. My mother started working me, right? My aunts all started working me because my mother had 2 sisters. It was like, yeah, there's a nest of vipers, you know? They were like the 3 sisters. Chekhov didn't know what the hell to do, wouldn't know what to do with these people. And so they started working me. And they want Danny Boy to get, have a career, have something to do. I wasn't going to just sit around. I was like the Great White Hope. All of a sudden, what am I going to do? Go hang in the pool hall? Next thing you know, I'm booking horses. Next thing I know, I'm doing, 3 to 5 up in Trenton. So I said, okay, I'd try it out. So all summer, they're prepping me. Like, they're showing me this, they're showing me that. They're showing me how to cut hair. They're showing me how to do the pin. Because my mother had no hair, hardly. She had, she wanted the pin curls. And, my aunt, one of my aunts was as old as this. She wanted finger waves. Okay, this is like, permanence. They had these machines that you wouldn't go near right now. They had wires coming out of these big, it scared the shit out of me. I didn't know what the hell it was. Well, you take the curlers, you stick it in there, and you clamp this thing on it. And then you plug it in. You're going to plug this thing in? Are you kidding me? I'm going to kill somebody. So, anyway, long story short, I get through the summer. She buys me a little kit, gets me a smock. You had to have a white smock or a blue smock. I wasn't going to wear a pink smock. Didn't go with my coloring. So I go to this place, the Wilfrid Academy, and up this big staircase, old building in Asbury, on the 2nd floor. I walked in, pushed open the doors, and I just never had more respect for my sister in my life than that moment, because there were 35 girls in there, all cute, all my age, maybe 3 or 4 guys. And it was like the gates of heaven opening. It was just so magnificent, because you got to know the girls, you got to talk to them, you had lunch with them. I spent 4 months or something doing this before I had to take my test to get my state license. And it was it was great. And then I took my license, the test, and I passed my test, and I got my license, and I went to work for my sister. And I was in the beauty parlor for 2 years. And she was giving me all kinds of, I was doing everything. I was doing 35 heads on a New Year's Eve. All kinds of fancy hairdos and this, that. We cut pictures out, and I went to Charles of the Ritz, went to school there, worked there for a little while in New York on Madison Avenue. I was like, she says, I want to figure out how to do makeup. I want to put a whole makeup station, because she expanded the shop 3 or 4 things. We had 3 or 4 people working there. I was one of them. She kind of eased herself out so she could just be the boss. Didn't have to work much. Anyway, really good, really good. She said, I want to make a whole makeup station here where people could come in and go, if they're going out on a date or they're going out somewhere, they can get a really professional makeup job, eyeliner, eyebrows, maybe I'll get a girl in to do a facial kind of thing. And but I want you to go to school. She's always sending me to school. She wants me to go to New York to find a place where I can learn how to do makeup. So, the obedient young brother that I am, I go. I look it up. I do all the research in the newspapers or whatever in the film. I find a place called Queen Helene Beauty Supplies. And it was out of a Vincent Price movie. I mean, seriously, right out of Mario Bava or somebody put this together. You walk into this hotel lobby, and it opened up, and it was like there was a counter with all the Queen Helene stuff, and you expected a gypsy to come out, somebody to come out and like start reading your fortune, and there were a couple of dames there, like they were, when I walked in, I said, they thought I was going to buy product or whatever. I said, no, I was looking for some place to learn how to do this, and they say, well, there is one woman who gives a private lesson. But she works at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. It's on Madison Avenue. Gave me the number. I called the woman. She met me at her lunch break. I went over there. I told her what I wanted. She says, I'm in the middle of this right now. I've got this whole semester just starting. If you want to enroll in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, I could teach you at night, right? But I can't really do this unless you come here to the school, and they won't let you take the class unless you're a student. So that's how I became an actor.
That's amazing. We know there's a lot from there to coming to Hollywood and getting into television, but since it's the Television Academy, that's what we want to focus on in terms of your career. So you did theater, and then you came to L.A. What was your first TV job?
The first TV job I think might have been either a Starsky and Hutch, or a policewoman, or a Delvecchio.
So those happened after Cuckoo's Nest, though, right?
No.
Those were around the same time as that.
No, I think policewoman. Oh, yeah, maybe it was after Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah.
So
Cuckoo's Nest really brought me out.
To that.
No, I did Cuckoo's Nest off Broadway, and chronologically, I'm not sure about this, but I did Cuckoo's Nest off Broadway in '74 or '5. I came out to California, and I think that's when I did the policewoman, the Delvecchio,
75 is when Cuckoo's Nest came out. And those shows definitely aired after that. So you came out and did Cuckoo's Nest. So talk a little bit about the Cuckoo's Nest.
Cuckoo's Nest was done in Salem, Oregon. It was like, the movie was very well received, as everybody knows. And I thought this would be a good idea to come out to California to promote myself and as an actor. Use this as a calling card, because I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get an agent. There was no work for me out here.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just was like I had to go. I was out here in 68 for a year, and I couldn't even get an agent. And I looked around. I mean, I tried like desperately. I was parking cars and stuff to keep myself going. And then I went back to New York and studied more, and went into off Broadway and off Broadway, and then I got Cuckoo's Nest off Broadway, and I think that's how I got Cuckoo's Nest, the movie. And I think Milos saw that, and also I was friends with Michael Douglas. That didn't hurt. It was in my corner, and then when I came out to California, it was still a little sketchy, in terms of like I did one thing that is really surprising. I don't know if do you know about All the Glitters?
Yes.
Yeah. When was that done? Because this is really fun, because I
don't have the exact date here.
I did a TV show that Norman Lear produced called All the Glitters, which was reversal roles. Like all the women played the men parts, and all the men played the women parts in terms of status in the companies. So it was a man who was playing a secretary always, and a woman who was playing the boss always. And it was a really cool show. And I played Baba, who was Marilyn Sokol's concubine. And I was with her, by her side all the time. I was painted kind of darker, and and I always had a robe on, and I never had a line in that show. I think I did 10 episodes, and the only thing I would do is whisper to her every time there was some kind of deal. And the reason she kept me around was because I had good instincts. See, I had good male instincts. It was a whole, female. And I remember what I used to say to her in her ear. Nobody ever heard this before on camera. I used to go, but I do it really close. I go over, and she'd go, and then she'd make whatever move she was going to make in the business world. But I told Norman Lear that once. I said to Norman, I said, I work for you. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I did 10 shows. You never gave me a goddamn line. To this day, I don't think he believes it.
I have to find it on YouTube and look at it.
All it glitters.
That was 1977.
1977.
1977. So actually, the year before that, you directed your first project, which was The Selling of Vincent D'Angelo.
So
talk about that. What was the plot of that?
Okay. I did a few things. One was The Selling of Vincent D'Angelo. One was called The Ratings Game. One was called Lovely Way to Spend an Evening. There were short films that The Selling of Vince D'Angelo, if you look at it today, it's really funny because it's been ripped off a million times. Because it's the candidate who is running for office and somebody comes in and tries to shoot him and, and he does everything from his hospital bed. It's all baloney. He has the guy do it, And I think the first person to copy that was I saw it in a movie a few years later. I can't remember which movie it was, but it was with the candidate. It was make-believe shot. It was right out of The Selling of Vince D'Angelo. And so TV informs everything. I think TV is the most important thing that we have on the planet right now. Even with the internet and with everything else, you're going to be watching all the internet shows on your TV. It's TV. That's it. That's the thing. That's what you call that thing. Whether it's a computer TV or a whatever TV, it's TV. It goes over the internet or it goes over the airwaves. Or how do we send it? It's a television. I sit in my room and I have my television on. I have my DVR, whatever you call it, all these shows. I'm like a box set junkie. I could watch box sets for all these different things that I miss over the years. I know I'm drifting off into some other category, but I wanted to talk about this because it's really important. While I was doing Jersey Films, let's jump past the movies that I made and Twins and all that stuff. I one of the big things I really wanted to do was, I wanted to do television, and I got to do it, but not right away because everybody wanted that vanity thing. They wanted movies from you, and they wanted you to be in them, which I wasn't in all the movies I produced. I did a lot of movies where I went against the grain, not because I wanted to just go against the grain, but because I wanted to embrace other filmmakers and stuff. But when we got a chance to do Karen Sisko, or we got Kate Brasher, or we got a chance to do Reno 911, or those kinds of things. But all the time I was doing movies, there were great shows on the air. Let's pick one, The Sopranos. Okay, I never, up until 6 months ago, time flies, I never watched The Sopranos. Okay? So, what did I do? I was like a kid in a candy store. I went and bought the box set of The Sopranos it cost me $300. I don't know how many hours. It's like 86 hours of television, right? And I watched it in 2 months. I just watched The Sopranos from morning till night. In fact, we would have people over, and, you know, if it got a little bit boring, you look around, I'd be gone. I'm upstairs watching Sopranos, you know, whatever's going on. I just like, any chance I got, I bailed to watch The Sopranos. So I continued that with Deadwood and with, you know, The Wire and with, you know, all these great shows. The Breaking Bad now is going on, and we're all up to this. But I was raised on definitely Jackie Gleason, Milton Berle, Ed Sullivan Show with the Kisfaludis and all the, what do you call it, these people who, you know, the guy with the plates and Senor Wences and, you know, Kate Smith in the afternoon. Do you remember? Now, you don't remember Kate Smith because you were too young, but Kate Smith was a very big woman. She had a bosom on her like, yo. And like, if you stayed home from school, put on Channel 5, Kate Smith would sing, her theme song was Moon, the Moon Comes Over the Mountain. The moon comes over the mountain. She had I don't even know what the woman looked like. All I was looking at was her tits. I mean, I was just like glued to that television. And what happened? It was early television, so they you know, they didn't really know what they were doing. They wound up, after like one whole half a season of her show, putting a big planter, like flowers in front of her, because nobody looked at her probably. She had these big white orbs that just like kind of like laid there in the bottom of the screen, and she would sing, and nobody was looking at anything. I wasn't looking at anything. I was like looking right at the, you know, the Grand Canyon.
Understand?
You know, amazing. So, you know, What's My Line? All those shows, they were great shows. And like at night it was Zachary on Friday night. He showed all the horror movies, and like I said before, television was like just the television movies were so big in my life that I can't. Comic books I love too, but television is there with you all the time, and it was like phenomenal. You know, my father was the kind of guy. I told you, he was like really. They're Italians. They're all Italians. Anybody who had a good voice on television was Italian. He could be born in Lithuania. If he had a good voice, he was, hey, there's an Italian guy singing. You know what I mean? And if there was anybody who came on television who you knew was Italian, you had to be in front of the television watching it, whether it was Connie Francis or, you know, whoever. He would say that, you know, the big Italian thing was that if you got thrown out at home plate and Roy Campanella made the play, he's an Italian. Roy Campanella was Italian. What was he? He was an African-American, I think. Okay.
So you made your big splash in television, obviously, on Taxi. So let's take that from the very beginning.
Let's go right from the beginning of Taxi.
Talk about, how did you first hear about Taxi?
Joel Thurm was the casting director in town, and he was very good to me. He would always call me in on things. And one day he called me and said, I got this thing you've got to look at. And I was in a spot where a lot of people were telling me not to do television, right? A lot of big shots, my
Why?
big shot friends. I don't know. They just said, you know, it uses you up and this, that, and the other thing. And, you know, but they were already rich and they already had a lot of money and they were already big movie stars, so they could say whatever they want. It didn't matter to me. My thing was, you know, I was like a television addict. I mean, I would watch Columbo until, you know, the cows came home. I'd watch The Saint, and I'd watch all of the great, you know, any TV show that was, you know, I was Spin and Marty was one of my favorites in the afternoon, you know. So Joel Thurm gave me the script, and I read it, and I loved it. I thought it was really terrific. It was great. I'd never seen Mary Tyler Moore. And that was, he said, well, these guys are from Mary Tyler Moore. I said, okay.
So with all the TV you watched, you had never seen the Mary Tyler
No.
Moore show?
Well, it was the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Because I broke off when I started acting. I have a very interesting television history. I broke off when I left home. I had stopped watching television because I didn't have a television. See? So, Room 222, all this, that, and the other. I watched Saturday Night Live because my friends would watch it with John Belushi, rest his soul. And so anyway, he said these guys are like, you know, Ed Weinberger, Jim Brooks, Stan Daniels, Dave Davis. These guys are from Mary Tyler Moore, and this is like a really great show. You should. And I hadn't known from Adam any of them, but I really loved the show. I thought the script was great.
And what about Louis? What about that character?
And that character was like amazing. It was just amazing, an amazing character, written really well. And I went in to their office one day to read for the part, and I walked in, and it was like beautiful, well-appointed office. And Ed Weinberger's there. He's got his sleeves rolled up. Jim Brooks, Stan Daniels, Dave Davis, a couple of assistants. They're all sitting around. There's a coffee table. There's a seat right there. And you know, that's the seat you're going to go in. That's the hot seat for the actor. And I'm walking in, and Joel Thurm was right here, and he says, everybody, I'd like you to meet Danny DeVito, blah, blah, blah. They didn't know me from Adam. Maybe they might have seen Cuckoo's Nest, but, you know. Anyway, I walk in, I take one step, I throw the script on the coffee table in front of him. I say, one thing I want to know before we start. Who wrote this shit? And I took one step in like kind of like a limbo where nothing happened. And then they just like went crazy laughing. It was like Louis had walked in to their lives. Anything I said after that. And I got to laugh. They get, you know, and Brooks is like, he's like some kind of weird animal when he laughs. Weinberger is, they all had their own, you know, TV laughs, genuinely, you know, into it, and love and it's like, you know, now in hindsight, you think about all the movies that you cast, the movies that you've done, the things that you do. You want actors to come in and be great. You really want it to click, you know. That's why I say to actors out there all the time when just go in there and you know, don't be nervous about it. Just go in there and knock their socks off because they want it to happen. They want it so bad.
And did you know that before that audition? Did you do that in other?
I've done a couple of crazy things that didn't work. This was the one that worked. Like I remember going in for a play. Richard Foreman, who was, I'm a big fan of his work. He's this very surrealistic kind of like, you know, and I went in and I told the casting director before, just open the door and I'll go in. And she opened the door and I laid down and I rolled in. And I said hello to him from the floor. And then I got up and did my scene and I didn't get the part, so it didn't really work.
It's a good try, though. We're going to change tapes.